Do you ever feel like your emotions are controlling you, rather than the other way around? It's a dangerous place to be, especially when those emotions are manipulated by someone you trust. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that hits close to home for many: emotional manipulation in marriage. What if I told you that the most vulnerable people in relationships aren't always the ones you'd expect? It's often married women who, driven by emotional attachment and societal pressures, unknowingly become targets for manipulation. But don't worry, there's hope. In this video, you'll learn exactly why emotional manipulation is so effective in relationships, and more importantly, how you can use Stoicism to take control of your emotion, set healthy boundaries, and stop manipulation in its tracks. And by the end of this video, I'll reveal a simple but powerful Stoic practice that could completely transform the way you navigate your relationships, giving you the emotional resilience to rise above any manipulation. Stay tuned, because this is going to change the way you think about emotional control. Topic 1. Understanding manipulation and Stoic virtues. Let's start by diving into the intricate world of manipulation. It's a force that, whether we realize it or not, shapes many of our relationships, often leaving us wondering why we act the way we do, or how we end up in situations that seem to control us. Emotional manipulation, especially in intimate relationships like marriage, can feel like an invisible hand guiding our choices and reaction. But the Stoic philosophy offers a powerful way to fight back against this influence, teaching us how to regain control over our minds, thoughts, and actions. At the heart of Stoicism is the understanding that we cannot control the external events that happen to us, but we can control how we respond to them. Emotional manipulation thrives in environments where people feel powerless or overly attached to external outcomes. This is why married women, often deeply invested in their relationships and the emotional well-being of their families, can be particularly vulnerable to manipulation. The very attachment that makes marriage a beautiful union also makes it a potential ground for emotional manipulation. The Stoic virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, can act as shields against the harmful effects of manipulation. By practicing wisdom, one learns to discern the difference between what can and cannot be controlled. By embracing courage, one can stand firm in their values, even in the face of emotional turmoil. Justice allows individuals to understand and protect their rights and boundaries, while temperance helps maintain emotional balance and not let external factors overwhelm us. But here's a question. Have you ever found yourself reacting to someone's words or actions in a way that you later regretted? Maybe you felt manipulated, or worse, controlled. This is where Stoicism comes into play, teaching us not to let external forces, especially in relationships, dictate our inner peace. As we go deeper into the topic, we'll explore how these virtues can help you identify and navigate emotional manipulation, especially in the context of marriage. Understanding manipulation in this way allows us to take the first step toward regaining control. And that's exactly what we'll look at next: the role of emotional attachment in marriage and why it can make us more vulnerable to being manipulated. Stick around as we dive deeper into how attachment can both bind us and, if we're not careful, trap us in unhealthy dynamics. Topic 2. The role of emotional attachment in marriage. Emotional attachment is at the very core of marriage. It's what draws two people together, creating bonds that are meant to last a lifetime. However, this attachment can also make us vulnerable, especially when it comes to emotional manipulation. When we form a deep emotional connection with someone, we give them access to our most intimate thoughts, feelings, and vulnerabilities. This makes us susceptible to influence, sometimes in ways we don't even notice until it's too late. In the context of marriage, emotional attachment often leads to a strong desire for approval, love, and affection from the other person. When one partner's needs are unmet, or worse, manipulated, it can trigger emotional responses that cloud our judgment. Here's the tricky part. This desire for approval or affection can make us more willing to tolerate behavior that isn't healthy, simply because we don't want to lose the connection we have with our spouse. But this is where Stoic philosophy offers profound insights. One of the key teachings of Stoicism is the practice of distancing yourself from the emotional highs and lows that come with external relationships. Instead of being ruled by emotions or the fear of losing something, Stoicism teaches us to focus on our own emotional control. It doesn't mean that we should suppress our emotions or cut ourselves off from loved ones. Instead, it encourages us to maintain a healthy equilibrium in the face of emotional turbulence. Think about it. Have you ever found yourself staying in a relationship, even when your gut told you something wasn't quite right, just because you didn't want to feel the pain of separation? The Stoic perspective encourages us to reflect on these emotional attachments, helping us evaluate whether staying in such a situation is truly beneficial to our well-being, or if it's a product of fear and emotional manipulation. Let's take a moment and reflect. Have you ever stayed silent or accepted behaviors that you knew were wrong, just to preserve a sense of connection? Many married women find themselves in this trap, holding on to unhealthy dynamics simply because they fear the emotional fallout of addressing difficult issues. Recognizing this vulnerability is the first step in breaking free from the cycle of emotional manipulation. Now, having understood how emotional attachment can become a weakness, we must next explore power dynamics in relationships. How does one person, often unknowingly, become the source of control over the other? And more importantly, how can Stoic philosophy empower us to identify and navigate these dynamics? Let's dive into this in the next section. Topic 3. The concept of power dynamics in relationships. Power dynamics in relationships are often subtle but profoundly influential. They can dictate the flow of conversation, decision-making, and even emotional responses. In a marriage, one partner may not even realize how much influence they wield over the other. This imbalance of power is where emotional manipulation often finds fertile ground to grow. The concept of power dynamics is about understanding who holds the emotional leverage in the relationship. It's about recognizing how one person's needs, desires, and actions can impact the other person's behavior, sometimes without either party realizing it. In many relationships, there is an unspoken hierarchy, where one partner's influence is stronger than the other's. For married women, especially, this can be a tricky space to navigate, as they may feel the weight of societal expectations, familial responsibilities, and their partner's emotional needs pressing down on them. From a Stoic perspective, power dynamics are a reflection of our external circumstances and relationships. But Stoicism teaches us that our true power lies not in controlling others, but in controlling ourselves, our emotions, reactions, and perceptions. In fact, one of the central tenets of Stoicism is the control of one's own mind, regardless of external circumstances. When we learn to detach from the emotional triggers others may impose on us, we reclaim the balance of power in our relationships. A simple example. Imagine being in a situation where your spouse repeatedly makes demands, and you find yourself giving in, even though you feel resentment building up inside. Over time, you may begin to feel as though you've lost your sense of self and autonomy within the relationship. This subtle shift in power, where one person's needs consistently take precedence over the others, is a common aspect of many unhealthy relationships. Stoicism teaches that we must examine these imbalances, not just accept them as part of the relationship. Think about it. Do you feel like your partner's emotional needs often outweigh your own? Stoicism doesn't suggest ignoring the needs of others, but it does encourage balance. Both partners in a marriage should feel they have equal space to express themselves without fear of manipulation or domination. When one partner holds emotional leverage over the other, it's easy for manipulation to creep in unnoticed. As we move forward, we must also examine societal expectations and gender roles that shape these dynamics. How do they reinforce or exacerbate power imbalances, especially in marriages? And how can Stoicism help us navigate these pressures and maintain emotional control? Let's explore this next. Topic 4. Societal expectations and the influence of gender roles. Societal expectations and gender roles play a significant role in shaping the dynamics of relationships, particularly within marriage. These roles are often deeply ingrained in culture, religion, and tradition, influencing how men and women behave within their unions. For married women, these expectations can sometimes feel like invisible chains, dictating everything from how they should behave to how they should prioritize their emotional needs and those of their family. In many cultures, women are taught from a young age to nurture and prioritize the needs of others. They are socialized to believe that their value lies in being selfless, caring, and emotionally available for their spouse and children. While these qualities are undeniably valuable in a marriage, they can also lead to an imbalance, where the woman's emotional well-being becomes secondary to the demands of others. This creates an opening for psychological manipulation. When societal expectations tell women that they must put others first, they may suppress their own desires and needs, allowing manipulation to take root. But here's where Stoicism comes in. One of the central principles of Stoicism is self-sufficiency, the idea that we must cultivate inner peace and emotional stability, regardless of external circumstances or societal pressures. Stoicism teaches that we should not be swayed by the expectations of others, but rather, we should focus on what we can control, our responses, actions, and emotions. By practicing emotional control, Stoicism helps individuals maintain their integrity and authenticity in relationships, despite societal pressures or gender expectation. Think about this for a moment. How often do you find yourself compromising your needs just to fulfill a role that society expects of you? In relationships, this pressure to conform to gender norms can create a sense of duty that overshadows the individual's true emotional needs. Stoicism teaches us to examine these roles critically, and to make decisions that align with our values and emotional health, rather than merely fulfilling an external script. For married women, it's crucial to understand that fulfilling societal roles doesn't mean sacrificing personal well-being. Stoicism encourages you to ask, am I making choices based on my true desires and values, or am I conforming to an external expectation? By cultivating emotional control and focusing on what we can truly control, our thoughts and actions, we can navigate these societal pressures and maintain healthier, more balanced relationships. Having explored the impact of societal expectations and gender roles, we now need to dive into psychological vulnerabilities, how emotional manipulation exploits these weaknesses. Let's take a closer look at how psychological manipulation targets vulnerabilities, and how Stoic philosophy offers strategies to safeguard against it. Topic 5. Psychological vulnerabilities and emotional manipulation. Psychological vulnerabilities are often the breeding grounds for emotional manipulation. These vulnerabilities are deeply rooted in our fears, insecurities, and unaddressed emotional wounds. In relationships, particularly in marriage, emotional manipulation can take advantage of these weak spots, subtly influencing one partner to behave in ways they wouldn't otherwise. It can lead to unhealthy dynamics, where one person manipulates the other by exploiting their vulnerabilities, sometimes without either partner even realizing it. For married women, this manipulation often centers around fears of abandonment, rejection, or not being enough. These fears can be heightened by societal expectations and gender roles, making them even more susceptible to manipulation. Emotional manipulation may manifest in many forms, such as guilt-tripping, gaslighting, or emotional blackmail. The manipulator plays on the victim's vulnerabilities, making them question their self-worth and feel responsible for the other person's emotion. Stoicism provides a robust framework for addressing these vulnerabilities. At the heart of Stoic philosophy is the idea that we cannot control the thoughts, actions, or emotions of others. We can only control our own responses. By focusing on internal emotional control, we develop resilience against emotional manipulation. When we practice Stoicism, we begin to realize that our self-worth is not tied to how others treat us or whether they try to manipulate us. Our value comes from within. Think about it. Have you ever felt manipulated by someone close to you, using your vulnerabilities against you? This feeling often comes from a place of insecurity, but Stoicism teaches that we are all enough just as we are. The next time you feel manipulated, ask yourself, am I allowing my insecurities to cloud my judgment? Or am I standing firm in my sense of self-worth? In the face of emotional manipulation, Stoicism encourages us to detach from the external forces that seek to influence us. This detachment doesn't mean shutting down our emotions. It means creating a space between our emotional reactions and the external events that trigger them. By cultivating this emotional distance, we prevent manipulation from taking root in our lives and maintain control over our emotional responses. Now that we've discussed how psychological vulnerabilities can be manipulated, let's move on to how personal boundaries fit into Stoic philosophy and why they're essential for emotional resilience in relationships. Boundaries are often the first line of defense against manipulation, and Stoicism can help us strengthen them. Let's dive deeper into this topic next. Topic 6. The role of personal boundaries in Stoic philosophy. Personal boundaries are essential for maintaining a healthy sense of self, especially in relationships. In the context of marriage, having strong personal boundaries is a way to safeguard your emotional well-being and protect yourself from manipulation. Without clear boundaries, it's easy for emotional manipulation to creep in, as one partner may unconsciously cross the line, taking advantage of the other's vulnerabilities. For married women, in particular, this can happen when societal pressures and traditional roles encourage self-sacrifice, making it harder to assert boundaries that protect one's emotional space. At the heart of Stoic philosophy is the idea of maintaining self-control and self-respect. One of the Stoic virtues, justice, involves respecting others, but also respecting oneself. When we fail to set boundaries, we allow others to impose their will upon us, which can lead to emotional exhaustion, resentment, and manipulation. Stoicism teaches that we must be the guardians of our own emotional space. It's our responsibility to protect our well-being by clearly defining and upholding our boundaries. Think about it. When was the last time you felt overwhelmed or manipulated because you didn't assert your boundaries? It's common for people to give in to others' demands, especially in intimate relationships, out of fear of confrontation or a desire to please. But Stoicism teaches us that by not setting clear boundaries, we allow others to dictate our emotional state. Setting boundaries isn't about being rigid or selfish, it's about protecting the emotional balance that Stoicism encourages. It's about choosing what you will and will not tolerate and aligning your actions with your values and sense of self-worth. To implement Stoic principles in boundary setting, it's important to practice reflection and self-awareness. Ask yourself, what are my non-negotiables? What am I willing to tolerate? And what is off-limits? By doing this, you gain clarity on what you need to protect emotionally, making it easier to assert those boundaries when necessary. As we've seen, Stoicism provides powerful tools for protecting your emotional health and resisting manipulation. Now, let's look at real-life examples where Stoic principles have had a transformative effect on relationship dynamics. How have individuals successfully used Stoicism to navigate emotional manipulation in their lives? These examples will provide a concrete understanding of how Stoic philosophy can be applied practically in relationships. Topic 7. Stoic solutions to overcoming manipulation. Overcoming emotional manipulation is not easy, but Stoic philosophy offers a powerful set of tools to regain control over your emotions and thoughts, allowing you to free yourself from the grip of manipulation. The first Stoic solution to manipulation is awareness. Recognizing when you are being manipulated is the first step toward taking back control. Often, manipulation is subtle, and it's easy to overlook the signs, especially when emotional attachment clouds your judgment. But the Stoics teach us to be aware of our emotions and reactions at all times. One of the core principles of Stoicism is the dichotomy of control, understanding the difference between what we can control and what we cannot. In relationships, especially in marriage, we cannot control the actions or emotions of our partner, but we can control how we react to them. By focusing on our own responses and emotional control, we can prevent manipulation from taking root. When we understand that we cannot control another person's behavior, but we can control our own actions, we remove the emotional power that others may have over us. Here's a practical example. Imagine you're in a situation where your partner uses guilt to manipulate you into doing something. A typical emotional response might be to give in, simply to avoid conflict. But the Stoic response would be to pause, recognize the manipulation for what it is, and choose not to react emotionally. Instead, you focus on what you can control, your decision and your emotional state. In a marriage, this approach can be incredibly empowering. Stoicism teaches that when we accept that others' behaviors are outside of our control, we no longer feel the need to respond defensively or emotionally. We can remain calm, composed, and act according to our values, rather than reacting to the manipulation. Another Stoic solution is to practice reflection. In times of emotional turmoil or when manipulation occurs, take a moment to reflect on the situation. Ask yourself, what do I have control over here? What is outside my control? By doing this, you immediately regain perspective and can make decisions based on clarity rather than emotional reaction. It's about taking a step back, detaching from the emotional noise, and making choices that align with your principles. Finally, self-respect is a crucial element of Stoicism in overcoming manipulation. When you respect yourself and your emotional boundaries, you're less likely to tolerate behaviors that don't align with your values. You become the guardian of your emotional well-being, and others can no longer use guilt or emotional pressure to manipulate you. Now that we've discussed Stoic solutions to manipulation, let's take a look at real-life examples where Stoic philosophy has influenced relationship dynamics. How have individuals applied these principles in their own marriages to overcome manipulation and maintain emotional control? These stories will help illustrate how Stoicism can be a life-changing tool in relationships. Topic 8. Real-life examples of Stoic influence on relationship dynamics. Stoicism isn't just a philosophy for philosophers, it's a practical, everyday tool that can transform relationships. Real-life examples of people who have embraced Stoicism show how the principles of emotional control, self-awareness, and detachment can change relationship dynamics, especially when emotional manipulation is at play. These examples highlight how Stoic wisdom can help individuals regain balance, protect their emotional health, and maintain healthier relationships. Take, for example, a woman named Sarah, who had been in a long-term marriage where emotional manipulation had slowly crept in. Her partner, often unknowingly, would guilt-trip her into staying in situations that made her uncomfortable, using her sense of responsibility as a weapon. For years, Sarah felt trapped. She loved her husband but feared that asserting her needs might make her appear selfish. This dynamic left her emotionally drained and resentful. But when Sarah discovered Stoic philosophy, everything changed. She began applying the Stoic practice of self-awareness, pausing and reflecting before reacting to her husband's manipulative behavior. Instead of succumbing to guilt or emotional pressure, she started to ask herself, what is within my control here? How can I respond in a way that aligns with my values, not my fears? Over time, Sarah started asserting her needs in the relationship, setting clear emotional boundaries without guilt. Her marriage improved because, by practicing Stoicism, Sarah became more emotionally resilient, confident, and self-aware. She was no longer swayed by her partner's manipulative tactics, but was able to engage in the relationship on her own terms. Another powerful example is John, who had been in a relationship with his partner, who often played the victim to manipulate him into doing things he didn't want to do. John, who had always been the caretaker in the relationship, began to realize that he was emotionally drained and feeling resentful. He realized that his own fears of rejection and feelings of responsibility were making him vulnerable to manipulation. Through Stoicism, John learned that he could detach his emotions from his partner's behavior. He didn't have to react to emotional blackmail or guilt. Instead, he started practicing emotional detachment, focusing on his responses and setting boundaries based on what was healthy for him. Over time, John became more emotionally independent, and his relationship became more balanced and respectful. These examples demonstrate the profound impact that Stoic principles can have on relationship dynamics. By focusing on emotional control, self-awareness, and setting boundaries, individuals like Sarah and John were able to overcome emotional manipulation and reclaim their sense of self within their marriages. Now, as we've seen from these examples, Stoicism offers practical solutions to emotional manipulation. But it all starts with one crucial element: self-awareness. To truly protect ourselves from manipulation, we need to cultivate a deep understanding of our own emotional triggers, vulnerabilities, and values. Let's explore the importance of self-awareness in the next section, and how it can strengthen your ability to navigate emotional manipulation in relationships. Topic 9. The importance of self-awareness. Self-awareness is arguably the most powerful tool we can develop to safeguard ourselves from emotional manipulation. It's the practice of knowing yourself, your emotional triggers, your strengths, your weaknesses, and your core values. When we are self-aware, we become better equipped to recognize when we are being manipulated or when we are veering off course emotionally. In the context of marriage and relationships, self-awareness helps us distinguish between what is truly in alignment with our values and what is being imposed upon us by someone else's needs or desires. It's all too easy to get caught up in the emotions of a situation and lose sight of what really matters. This is particularly true when we feel emotionally attached or dependent on someone, as is often the case in marriage. But Stoicism teaches us that self-awareness is the first step in regaining control over our emotions and actions, and ultimately, our relationships. To be truly self-aware, we must spend time reflecting on our emotions and behaviors. This can be challenging because it often requires us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves. But this is the essence of Stoic practice, embracing discomfort for growth. When we take the time to reflect on why we feel a certain way, why we react in certain situations, and why we allow others to influence us, we gain valuable insights into our own vulnerabilities and emotional patterns. This allows us to break free from automatic, reactionary responses and instead make conscious choices that reflect our true selves. Think about it. How often do you act or respond in a certain way because it's what you've always done, or because you fear the consequences of saying no? Self-awareness allows us to step outside of these patterns and ask ourselves, is this the response I truly want to have? Is this behavior in alignment with my values? By cultivating this awareness, we gain the power to choose how we respond in any given situation, regardless of how emotionally charged it may be. Here's a simple Stoic exercise to enhance self-awareness: daily reflection. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to reflect on the day's events. Ask yourself, what emotions did I experience today? How did I react to those emotions? Did I respond in a way that aligned with my values? This small daily practice can lead to significant personal growth over time, helping you understand your emotional triggers and how you can better navigate them. By cultivating self-awareness, we empower ourselves to recognize when emotional manipulation is at play, and to respond in a way that is aligned with our inner values and Stoic principles. It's the foundation of emotional control and resilience in relationships. As we've seen, Stoic philosophy offers powerful tools for overcoming manipulation and maintaining emotional balance. By practicing awareness, setting boundaries, and understanding our emotional triggers, we can protect ourselves from being controlled by others and create healthier, more resilient relationships. The journey towards emotional control and resilience is not easy, but with Stoicism as a guide, it is absolutely possible. We've explored how emotional manipulation often creeps into marriages, especially when we're not aware of our own vulnerabilities. By embracing Stoicism, we can reclaim our emotional strength and set the boundaries necessary for a healthier, more balanced relationship. The key is recognizing that we are the ones in control of our responses, not the other person. Remember, self-awareness is the foundation of emotional resilience. When you understand yourself, you can protect your peace and avoid being manipulated by others. This journey towards emotional control isn't easy, but it's definitely worth it. If this video helped you understand how to protect yourself from manipulation and navigate your relationships with more emotional resilience, then hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom to help you master your emotion. Now, I want to hear from you. How have you navigated emotional manipulation in your life or relationship? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep this conversation going. Stay stoic, stay strong.